Welcome back. In the last lesson, we've almost completed sculpting the body model. Now, we need to further increase the mesh density to sculpt more details. Without further ado, let's start today's lesson. Before increasing the mesh density, let's be thorough and comprehensively check our model one last time. In fact, at this stage, the body's effect is already achieved, and we can proceed to topology. But the paws still look a bit rough, so we need to increase the mesh density to refine the paws. Let's find Remesh from the top. Let's adjust the voxel size to increase the mesh density and then click Remesh. You can see that the mesh density is now high enough for more detailed sculpting. Now, the mesh has become very dense, seemingly enough for sculpting the head, which we'll attempt shortly. Now let's continue refining the front and hind paws. We'll work on the interdigital space during topology. For now, let's sculpt the foot structure. Here are the main joints of the toes, and here are the structures where nails grow. From the side view, you can see how the bones grow on the toes. When we sculpt the paws, each toe, pad, and bone actually corresponds. For example, the paw here is a long bone that grows all the way down to where it connects with the toes. Let me mark it on the model surface. Change the brush color. There is a joint here, and the bone grows until here. The joints of the toes grow in this way, and the nails grow in the front, the position of the joint that corresponds to the paw pad's position. For example, this joint corresponds to this foot pad below, and this joint of the toe corresponds to this foot pad below. So we have to pay attention to that. Okay, let's delete the color. Let's continue sculpting. Next, let's focus on sculpting the foot structures. In the previous stage, we've already created the basic structure of the feet. Here, we need to further define the shape of the structures. The sole is still rough. Let's refine the structure of the sole. That looks all right. Let's continue adjusting the overall shape of the foot. After sculpting the toes, let's refine the structure of the paws together. The hind paws are refined. Let's adjust the body part next. Actually, there's no need for detailed refinement on the body. We mainly make the joints and connections between structures more defined. Now let's make the joint at the ankle clearer. I'm using the Draw Sharp brush now. Holding Shift allows us to sculpt in the opposite way, creating clearer structural contours. Direct sculpting can also make the grooves clearer. This structure needs to be a bit thinner. Let's take an overall look. Looks good. Alright, we've sculpted the hind paws to this point. Let's continue to observe the body part. The tail seems curved. Let's adjust it with Grab Brush. With increased mesh density, we can also sculpt more details on the body. We can add some more detailed textures, but we need to control ourselves as most parts of the body are covered with fur and don't require excessive detailing. We can spend more time on other parts instead of the detailing here. Let's add more detail to the muscle structure in the front shoulders. We can draw some random strokes following the muscle direction on the surface to make the connections between structures more natural. Then, let's make the structures and joints of the front legs more prominent. At this stage, we mainly use the Draw Sharp brush, followed by the Draw brush. Next is the lower leg part. Let's go back to the panoramic view to observe our model. After refining the front legs, they look much better. The structures sculpted behind the front legs look unnatural. Let's use clay strips brush and draw some random strokes along the structure's direction to make it look more natural, then smooth it out. Looks much better now. Let's do the same for the lower part here. Alright, looks good for now. Let's make the silhouette behind the ribs more prominent with draw brush. Okay, leave this effect for now. We can notice some structural issues on the body, but it's now more difficult to adjust the rough shape of the structure due to the high mesh density, making it less suitable for large-scale adjustments. We'll leave it like this for now, and it will be easier to adjust after completing the topology later. Now, let's refine the front paws. Let's review the process of sculpting the feet. First, we identify the key points on the toes. The point in each gap between toes is the lowest point on the foot surface. Let's sculpt it first. Then, the key bone point on the toes. This point is the highest point on the foot surface. Next, let's adjust the positions and proportions of the 4 toes. The middle 2 toes are the highest and most prominent, while the outer ones are shorter. From the front view, they form an arc-like contour. Now, let's sculpt the bone shape of the metacarpus. Next, let's detail each toe. Currently, the middle part of each toe seems connected, and the silhouettes are blurry. As we've reached the back of the foot, let's sculpt a small heel here. Then sculpt the structures growing on top. Alright, let's go back to the feet. At this point, we've almost completed sculpting the paw structure. Let's switch to the orthographic side view, ensuring the toes' bottoms align perfectly with the ground. The front feet have extended below the ground, while the hind feet are somewhat elevated. Let's adjust the position of all feet accordingly. Alright, don't forget to sculpt the dew claws on the front feet. Let's sculpt them now, but note that this toe is shorter. Alright, the dew claws are completed. Due to the current mesh, it's inconvenient to separate the toes now. So we'll keep the current effect and separate the toes during the topology stage. Now, the body sculpting is complete. Next, we'll continue with the head sculpting.